The phone call changed everything. I was sitting in my home office at 11:30 p.m., polishing my retirement speech for the 100th time when I heard Diana's voice drift up from the kitchen below. She was whispering, but our old Victorian house carried sound like a cathedral carries prayer. "He'll never see it coming, babe. Tomorrow's the day." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I set down my reading glasses and listened harder. My wife of 32 years was talking to someone who definitely wasn't me, using a voice I hadn't heard directed my way in at least 5 years. Sweet, intimate, conspiratorial. Arthur's so focused on his stupid speech, he has no clue what's waiting for him at that party. Arthur. That's me, by the way. Arthur Denton, 65 years old, about to retire as Chief Financial Officer of Morrison Industries after 4 decades of faithful service. Or so I thought. I crept to the top of the stairs, my sock-covered feet silent on the hardwood. Diana was still talking, her voice now carrying that little giggle she used to reserve for me back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. "Victor, baby, I can't wait to see his face when I hand him those papers, in front of everyone, his colleagues, his friends, even the kids. It'll be perfect. Victor Hale, my former junior analyst, who I'd mentored for 3 years before he left Morrison for what he called better opportunities. Apparently, one of those opportunities was my wife. The lawyer said the timing is crucial," Diana continued. "Once he signs at the party, with all those witnesses, there's no backing out. Half of everything, including his pension and that precious retirement fund he thinks I don't know about." I gripped the banister so hard my knuckles went white. The retirement fund. The one I'd been building for 40 years. The one that was supposed to keep us comfortable through our golden years. The one Diana apparently planned to split down the middle with her boy toy. I know. 34 years old and already smarter than Arthur ever was. That's why I love you, Victor. I'd heard enough. I padded back to my office, closed the door quietly, and sat down in my leather chair. The same chair where I'd made million-dollar decisions for Morrison Industries. Where I'd saved the company from bankruptcy twice. Where I'd built financial strategies that kept hundreds of people employed. And now I needed to build one more strategy. The most important one of my life. I opened my laptop and started typing. Not the retirement speech. That could wait. Instead, I began drafting emails to my lawyer, my accountant, and my oldest friend, Kyle, who happened to own a bar downtown and used to be a detective before he retired. If Diana wanted to play games, she'd pick the wrong opponent. By 3 a.m., I had a plan. By dawn, the wheels were already in motion. Diana came down to breakfast at 8, looking fresh and innocent in her blue dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. She kissed my forehead like she had every morning for 3 decades. "Nervous about tonight, honey?" she asked, pouring herself coffee. "A little," I lied, buttering my toast. "It's strange, ending a career." "Well, you've got so much to look forward to now. We both do." If she only knew. The Morrison Industries Conference Center was packed by 7 p.m. 200 people had shown up for my retirement party, colleagues, clients, friends, even some competitors who'd battled me across negotiation tables for decades. The company had spared no expense. Open bar, catered dinner, a live band, and enough flowers to stock a funeral home, which, in retrospect, was fitting. Diana worked the room like a politician's wife, all smiles and gracious conversation. She'd changed into a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Victor lurked near the bar, trying to look casual in his expensive suit. He'd grown a beard since leaving Morrison, probably thinking it made him look distinguished. Instead, he looked like a weasel wearing a tuxedo. My children had flown in for the occasion. Olivia from Seattle, Ben from Denver. Both successful, both married, both clearly in on whatever Diana had planned. I could see it in their eyes, that mixture of pity and anticipation that people get when they're watching a car accident in slow motion. Kyle stood near the back of the room, nursing a beer and scanning the crowd with cop eyes that retirement hadn't dulled. He caught my gaze and nodded once. Everything was ready. The speeches started at 8:30. My boss, Harold Morrison himself, took the podium first. He talked about my dedication, my integrity, my 4 decades of service. He mentioned the company turnarounds, the successful mergers, the times I'd worked 18-hour days to meet impossible timelines. Arthur Denton, Harold concluded, is the kind of man who defines loyalty. The kind of man you can trust with your life savings, your company's future, your deepest secrets. We're going to miss him terribly. The applause was thunderous. People stood up, clapping and cheering. I saw tears in some eyes. These people genuinely respected me, maybe even loved me. And Diana was about to humiliate me in front of every single one of them. More speeches followed. Colleagues shared stories about my mentorship, my problem-solving abilities, my dry sense of humor. Victor's replacement at Morrison, a sharp young woman named Jennifer, talked about how I'd taught her to see patterns in financial data that others missed. Arthur doesn't just crunch numbers, she said. He understands that every spreadsheet tells a human story. Every budget reflects someone's dreams and fears. That's what made him great at his job, and that's what's going to make his retirement so well-deserved. Finally, it was my turn. I walked to the podium, looking out at all those faces. Friends, colleagues, my children, my wife, her lover, all waiting to see how this story would end. "Thank you," I began. 40 years is a long time, long enough to see this company grow from a small family business to a major player in our industry, long enough to weather recessions, celebrate boom times, and learn that the only constant in business is change. I paused, letting my eyes find Diana. She was sitting at the head table, her hands folded in her lap, waiting. I've learned that trust is the most valuable currency in any relationship, business or personal. When someone trusts you with their money, their company, their future, that's sacred. Breaking that trust isn't just wrong, it's unforgivable. Diana shifted in her seat. Victor took a long drink from his whiskey glass. "Which brings me to the future," I continued. "Tomorrow starts a new chapter for me. New adventures, new challenges, new opportunities to discover what really matters in life." That's when Diana stood up. She walked to the front of the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. In her hand was a manila envelope thick with legal documents. The room fell silent except for the soft jazz playing from the speakers. "Arthur," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone system, "before you start that new chapter, we need to close the old one." She handed me the envelope. "These are divorce papers. I'm sorry to do this here, but you've been so busy with work, we never had time to talk privately." The silence in the room was deafening. 200 people holding their collective breath, watching my marriage implode in real time. I opened the envelope and pulled out the papers. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Diana Moss Denton versus Arthur James Denton. Irreconcilable differences. Request for spousal support. Division of marital assets. "You want me to sign these now?" I asked. "Here." "I think it's appropriate," Diana said. "Your career is ending. Our marriage is ending. Clean slate for both of us." I looked out at the crowd. My children were nodding encouragingly. Olivia actually smiled. Ben gave me a thumbs up. They thought they were about to inherit half of everything I'd worked for, with Diana as their ally and advocate. Victor raised his glass in a mock toast. I pulled a pen from my jacket pocket, the same Mont Blanc pen I'd used to sign million-dollar contracts for 4 decades. I signed every page, every line, every initial box. When I finished, I handed the papers back to Diana. "There," I said. 32 years, signed away in 32 seconds. The crowd was still frozen, This wasn't how retirement parties usually went. I walked back to the microphone. Well, this is awkward. But as I was saying, tomorrow starts a new chapter. And sometimes, to write a new story, you have to burn the old one to the ground. I smiled at Diana, at Victor, at my children. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the party. The bar's open for another hour. Then I walked out, leaving 200 stunned people behind me. The next morning, I woke up in Kyle's spare bedroom above his bar. The copper kettle wasn't much to look at, a dive bar in downtown Morrison with sticky floors and furniture that had seen better decades. But it was quiet, private, and Kyle had helped me move some essential items there the night before. Diana had already changed the locks on our house. I'd expected that. What I hadn't expected was the text message from Olivia at 7 a.m. Dad, we need to talk. Mom says you're being unreasonable about the settlement. Unreasonable. That was rich. I made coffee in Kyle's tiny kitchen and sat down at his computer. Time to check on my handiwork from the past week. While Diana had been planning her grand betrayal, I'd been planning something much more comprehensive. The Morrison Industries Retirement Fund showed a balance of $0, transferred out 3 days ago to an offshore trust in the Cayman Islands, perfectly legal for premarital assets, which this fund was, since I'd started it 5 years before marrying Diana. My personal investment accounts, also $0. Moved to the same trust. The house, still in both our names, but mortgaged to the hilt as of yesterday. I'd taken out a home equity loan for the full appraised value, then transferred that money to the trust as well. Diana would get half of our marital assets, just like the divorce papers specified. Half of our joint checking account, which contained about $300. Half of our credit card debt, which I'd run up to the maximum on every card buying gold coins that were now safely stored in a deposit box under the trust's name. She'd also get half the mortgage payments on a house that was now worth exactly what we owed on it. Kyle came downstairs at 9, looking like he'd slept about as well as I had. Coffee? I offered. God, yes. He poured himself a mug and sat across from me. So, how does it feel to be a free man? Ask me in a week. Right now it feels like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. What shoe? You covered all the bases. Everything you did was legal, documented, and ironclad. Diana's lawyer is going to have a stroke when he sees the asset disclosure. My phone rang. Diana's number. Arthur, we need to talk. Her voice had lost all its sweetness from the night before. I think we said everything we needed to say at the party, don't you? Don't be cute. I want to discuss the settlement. My lawyer says there are some irregularities with the financial disclosure. What kind of irregularities? You know damn well what kind. Where's the money, Arthur? What money? I'm a retired CFO living on Social Security. You got half of everything we own together, just like you wanted. The retirement fund, the investment accounts, the savings. 40 years of savings, Arthur. Oh, that money. That was mine before we got married, Diana. Premarital assets. The trust protects it from division in divorce proceedings. Didn't your lawyer explain that to you? The silence stretched for 10 seconds. You snake. Now. That's no way to talk to your ex-husband, especially when you're going to need a cosigner for an apartment lease. She hung up. Kyle was grinning. I take it the penny dropped? Like a piano from a 10th floor window. My phone buzzed with a text from Ben. Dad, what the hell did you do? Mom is freaking out. Another text from Olivia. We need to have a family meeting. This is ridiculous. I turned off my phone and poured another cup of coffee. So what's next? Kyle asked. Now we wait. Diana's going to try everything she can think of. Lawyers, threats, maybe even getting the kids to guilt me into reversing the trust. But that's not going to work. Because I learned something important in 40 years of business, Kyle. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Diana showed me exactly who she is last night. So did my children. Kyle nodded. And Victor? Victor's about to learn that sleeping with the boss's wife is a lot less fun when the boss's wife is broke. 3 days later, I was having lunch at Murphy's Deli when Victor walked in. He looked like hell, unshaven, wrinkled shirt, the kind of desperate energy that comes from not sleeping. He spotted me immediately and marched over to my table. "You bastard," he said, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "You ruined everything." I looked up from my pastrami sandwich. "Victor, you look terrible. Rough couple of days?" "You know exactly how rough. Diana told me what you did. The trust, the accounts, all of it. I protected my assets from a gold-digging wife and her boy toy. Seemed like the prudent thing to do." He leaned across the table, his face inches from mine. "That money was supposed to support Diana. She's 58 years old, Arthur. What's she supposed to do now?" "I don't know. Maybe get a job. I hear there's good money in consulting if you have the right skills. She can't afford her lifestyle on consultant wages." "Then maybe she should have thought of that before she decided to publicly humiliate me at my own retirement party." Victor straightened up, his hands clenched into fists. "You're going to fix this, Arthur. You're going to dissolve that trust and give Diana what she deserves. Or what? Or I'll make you regret it." I stood up slowly, all 6 feet 2 inches of me. Victor was maybe 5'8" on a good day. "Are you threatening me, son?" "I'm promising you." "Well then." I picked up my sandwich and took a bite, chewing thoughtfully. "I guess we understand each other." Victor stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. The woman at the next table leaned over. "Wasn't that your wife's boyfriend, the one from the retirement party?" Word traveled fast in a town like Morrison. "Ex-wife," I corrected. "And yes, that was him. He seems upset. He'll get over it, or he won't. Either way, it's not my problem anymore." That evening, I was back at Kyle's bar when Diana walked in. She'd dressed carefully. Designer jeans, cashmere sweater, jewelry that cost more than most people's cars. She was trying to project confidence, but I could see the cracks around the edges. "Hello, Arthur." "Diana, you look lovely. New outfit?" "We need to talk. Privately." Kyle took the hint and disappeared into the back room. Diana sat on the bar stool next to mine, close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same perfume she'd worn on our first date 33 years ago. "This has gone far enough," she said. "I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. The way I handled things at the party was wrong. I should have talked to you privately first." "Yes, you should have. So let's fix this. Let's work out a fair settlement, something that takes care of both of us." "I thought we already did that. You got half of our marital assets, just like you wanted." "Arthur, please. You know that's not what I meant. The retirement fund, the investments, I was counting on that money." "For what? To set up house with Victor?" She flinched. "That's not. Victor and I aren't what? Sleeping together, planning a future together, using my money to fund your little love nest?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Diana? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you and your boyfriend tried to rob me blind, and now you're upset that it didn't work." She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. "I haven't been happy, Arthur. Not for years. You were always working, always focused on the company. We became strangers living in the same house. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. Victor makes me feel alive again. Young. Desired. Victor makes you feel like a wallet with legs, Diana. The minute he figures out there's no money coming, he'll be gone. You don't know him like I do. I know him better than you think. I hired him, remember? I know he's got gambling debts, credit card problems, and a taste for expensive things he can't afford. I know because I had to advance him money against his salary twice when he worked for me." Diana's face went pale. "That's not... He never told me." There's a lot Victor never told you. But you'll figure it out soon enough. She stood up, her composure cracking. You're going to regret this, Arthur. All of it. The money, the humiliation, the way you're treating me now. You're going to end up a lonely old man with nothing but your precious bank account for company. Maybe, but at least I'll be honest about who I am. She left without another word. Kyle emerged from the back room. That looked intense. She's starting to realize what she's lost, and more importantly, what she's gained. Victor and all the problems that come with him. Give it a week, 2 at the most. I was right. It took exactly 6 days. I was walking out of the grocery store when I heard shouting from the parking lot. Diana and Victor were standing next to her Mercedes, having what looked like a very public argument. Other shoppers were staring, some pulling out phones to record the drama. You lied to me, Diana was saying. $20,000 in gambling debts, credit cards maxed out, a loan from some bookie in Detroit. Baby, I can explain. Don't you dare baby me. I spent my last $1,000 bailing you out of that poker game, and now you tell me there's more? I should have kept walking, should have gotten in my car and driven away. But 40 years of marriage creates habits that are hard to break, and one of those habits was protecting Diana from public embarrassment. Is everything all right here? I asked, approaching their car. They both turned to look at me. Diana's makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled. Victor looked like a cornered animal. Arthur, Diana said, we were just having a private conversation in a public parking lot, I finished. Diana, you're making a scene. Don't tell me what I'm doing, she snapped. This is your fault, all of it. My fault that Victor's a degenerate gambler. My fault that he lied to you about his debts. Victor stepped forward. Watch your mouth, old man. Or what? You'll threaten me again, like you did at Murphy's Deli? A crowd was gathering now, people with their phones out, recording everything. This was going to be all over social media within an hour. You destroyed my life, Victor said. Diana and I were happy until you pulled your little financial trick. You were happy spending money that didn't belong to you. There's a difference. That money should have been Diana's. According to who? You? The guy who's been lying about his gambling debts and credit problems? Diana looked back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. What gambling debts? Victor, what is he talking about? Victor's face went red. It's not what you think, baby. I had a little bad luck at the casino, but... How much? Diana demanded. It's not important. How much, Victor? He mumbled something under his breath. I can't hear you. 37,000, he said louder. But I can win it back. I know I can. Diana slapped him, hard. The sound echoed across the parking lot, like a gunshot. You snake, she said. You used me. You made me destroy my marriage for money that doesn't even exist. That's not true. I love you. You love my bank account, which, thanks to Arthur's little game, is now empty. She turned to me, her eyes blazing. And you knew this would happen, didn't you? You knew Victor was using me, and you let me humiliate myself anyway. I tried to warn you, I said quietly. At the bar, remember? I told you Victor was in financial trouble. You could have told me about the trust. You could have stopped me from making a fool of myself. Would you have listened? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. We both knew the truth. Victor tried to put his arm around her. Diana, baby, we can work this out. She shrugged him off. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. But I love you. You love the idea of me. Rich widow, comfortable retirement, someone to pay your bills and clean up your messes. Well, guess what? I'm not rich anymore, and I'm done cleaning up after men who can't take care of themselves. She got in her car and drove away, leaving Victor standing alone in the parking lot with 20 people recording his humiliation on their phones. He turned to me, his face twisted with rage. This isn't over, Arthur. Yes, it is, I said. It's been over since the moment you decided to sleep with my wife. You just didn't know it yet. I walked to my car, started the engine, and drove home to Kyle's bar. Behind me, Victor was still standing in the parking lot, shouting at no one in particular. The video was on Facebook within an hour. By evening, it had been shared 300 times. 2 weeks later, my phone rang at 6 in the morning. Olivia's number. Dad, we need to talk. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. Don't sweetheart me. Do you know what you've done? I sat up in bed, instantly awake. I've done a lot of things, Olivia. You'll need to be more specific. Mom's living in a studio apartment above a hair salon. She's working as a receptionist at a dental office. A receptionist, Dad. She's 58 years old. And it's your fault. You could fix this with one phone call, but you're being stubborn and vindictive. I'm being practical. Your mother chose to end our marriage in the most humiliating way possible. She chose to have an affair with a gambling addict. She chose to assume she was entitled to money she never earned. I didn't make those choices for her. She made mistakes, but that doesn't mean she deserves to live in poverty. She's not living in poverty, Olivia. She's living within her means for the first time in 30 years. Ben and I have been talking. Oh, have you now? We think you should reconsider the trust. Maybe not give her everything, but enough to live comfortably. It's the right thing to do. The right thing to do would have been for your mother to ask for a divorce privately instead of ambushing me at my retirement party. The right thing to do would have been for my children to support their father instead of applauding his public humiliation. Silence on the other end of the line. We thought you'd be better off without her, Olivia said finally. She was always criticizing you, always complaining about your work schedule. We thought the divorce was a good thing. But you also thought you'd inherit half of my retirement fund through her, didn't you? More silence. That's what this is really about, I continued. You and Ben were counting on that money. Maybe not now, but eventually. When Diana passed away, you figured you'd split whatever was left of my assets. Now you realize there might not be anything left to split. That's not... We weren't... Yes, you were. And you know what? That tells me everything I need to know about the kind of children I raised. Dad, please. I'm not your dad anymore, Olivia. I'm just Arthur, a lonely old man with a bank account like your mother said. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I hung up. Kyle was waiting downstairs with coffee and the morning paper. Rough call? My daughter. Apparently, I'm supposed to feel guilty because Diana's working for a living. Are you? Feeling guilty? I thought about it. No. I'm feeling something else. What's that? Free. That afternoon, I drove to the hair salon where Diana was supposedly living. It was in a strip mall on the east side of town, wedged between a pizza place and a dry cleaner. I climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor and knocked on apartment 2B. Diana answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger somehow, less polished, but more real. Arthur, what are you doing here? I wanted to see how you were doing. She stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was tiny. One room with a kitchenette, a bathroom the size of a closet, and a Murphy bed that folded down from the wall. But it was clean, organized, and decorated with things I recognized from our house. Books, photographs, a quilt her grandmother had made. It's not much, she said, but it's mine. How's the job? Boring, but honest. I answer phones, schedule appointments, file insurance forms. 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and at the end of the month, I've earned every penny of my paycheck. She made tea, and we sat at her small table by the window. Outside, I could see the parking lot of a Walmart and the roof of a McDonald's. I owe you an apology, she said. Not for the divorce. We both know that marriage was over years ago, but for the way I handled it. The public humiliation, The assumption that I was entitled to your money, the whole mess with Victor. What happened to Victor? He's gone. Moved back to Detroit last I heard. Apparently his bookie was getting impatient. I'm sorry. No, you're not. And you shouldn't be. You tried to warn me, and I wouldn't listen. I was so caught up in feeling desired and appreciated that I ignored all the red flags. We sat in silence for a while, drinking tea and watching traffic in the parking lot below. The kids called you, didn't they? Diana said finally. This morning. They think I should dissolve the trust. And I told them to mind their own business. She laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in years. I bet that went over well. About as well as you'd expect. They're not bad kids, Arthur. They're just entitled. We spoiled them. We gave them everything they wanted and nothing they needed. Like character, like resilience, like the ability to earn their own way in the world. I nodded. Maybe it's not too late for them to learn. Maybe not. I finished my tea and stood up. I should go. Arthur, she said as I reached the door, are you happy with how everything turned out? I thought about it. I'm not unhappy. For the first time in years, I wake up every morning knowing that the people in my life are there because they want to be, not because they want something from me. That sounds lonely. Sometimes. But it's honest. I left her there in her tiny apartment, looking out at the Walmart parking lot. As I drove home, I realized something had changed. The anger was gone. The need for revenge had burned itself out. What was left was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. 6 months later, I was tending bar at Kyle's place when a woman I didn't recognize walked in. She was maybe 60, well-dressed but not flashy, with the kind of confidence that comes from years of handling difficult situations. Arthur Denton? She asked. That's me. My name is Margaret Chen. I'm a private investigator. I'd like to talk to you about your divorce. Kyle appeared at my elbow. Everything all right here? I'm not sure, I said. Ms. Chen, what exactly do you want to discuss? She pulled out a business card and slid it across the bar. I've been hired to look into some irregularities surrounding your wife's affair and the timing of your divorce. Hired by who? I'm not at liberty to say, but I think you'll be interested in what I've discovered. She opened a briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Did you know that Victor Hale was in contact with your wife for over a year before their affair became physical? I suspected they'd been talking longer than they admitted. Did you know that someone was feeding Victor information about your financial situation, your retirement timeline, your investment strategies, even details about your premarital assets? That got my attention. What kind of details? The kind that would help someone plan the perfect time to initiate divorce proceedings. The kind that would help them calculate exactly how much money was at stake. She pulled out a stack of printed emails. These are communications between Victor and someone using the email address lmorrison47@gmail.com. The person behind this email knew everything about your finances, Arthur. Everything. I scanned the emails. Victor asking about my retirement date. The mystery person confirming that I'd be vulnerable to a public divorce filing. Victor asking about my premarital assets. The mystery person providing detailed information about my trust structures and legal protections. L. Morrison, I said. That could be anyone. Could be, but I did some digging on the account creation date, the IP address, the recovery phone number. Want to guess what I found? I had a sinking feeling I already knew. The account was created by Lorraine Morrison, Harold Morrison's wife, your boss's wife. The folder slipped from my hands, papers scattering across the bar. Kyle bent down to help me pick them up, his face grim. Lorraine Morrison, I repeated. Harold's wife of 40 years. Why would she? That's what I was hoping you could tell me, Margaret said. Do you have any history with Mrs. Morrison? Any reason she might want to see you humiliated or financially damaged? I thought back through 4 decades of working for Harold Morrison. Lorraine had been at every company party, every corporate retreat, every major celebration. She'd always been polite to me, friendly even. But now that I thought about it, there had been something else underneath. A coolness, a distance that I'd attributed to her natural reserve. And then I remembered. The Christmas party, I said. 3 years ago. Lorraine had been drinking, and she cornered me in Harold's office. She made a pass at me. Kyle raised an eyebrow. And I turned her down. Gently, but firmly. I told her she'd had too much to drink and suggested she find Harold. How did she react? Margaret asked. She was embarrassed, angry. She said something about how I thought I was too good for her, how I'd always acted like I was better than everyone else. Did you tell anyone about this? No. Harold's been my friend for 20 years. I wasn't going to destroy his marriage over his wife's drunken mistake. Margaret nodded, making notes. So Lorraine Morrison orchestrated your wife's affair as revenge for rejecting her advances. She fed Victor information about your finances, helped him time the seduction perfectly, and encouraged Diana to file for divorce in the most humiliating way possible. But why involve Victor? Why not just, spread rumors or something? Because this was more elegant. She could destroy your marriage, humiliate you publicly, and potentially cost you millions of dollars, all while keeping her hands completely clean. If the plan had worked, you'd have blamed Diana and Victor. You'd never have suspected her. I felt sick. Diana wasn't just having an affair. She was being manipulated. It looks that way. Victor too, probably. Lorraine played them both like chess pieces. Kyle poured 3 glasses of whiskey. We all drank in silence. What happens now? I asked. That depends on you, Margaret said. My client hired me to find the truth. Now that we have it, what you do with it is up to you. Who hired you? She smiled for the first time since walking in. Diana did. She's been working 2 jobs to save up enough money to hire me. She said something about the whole situation never feeling right, like there were pieces missing from the puzzle. I stared at her. Diana hired you? She did. And she asked me to give you this. Margaret handed me an envelope with my name written in Diana's familiar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Arthur, I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what I did, but something about Victor's pursuit always bothered me. He knew things about our marriage, our finances, our problems that I never told him. He pushed for the public divorce, insisted it had to be at your retirement party. It felt orchestrated, but I was too caught up in the excitement to question it. I'm sorry for everything. I hope this helps you find the truth. Diana. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. Where is Diana now? Working the night shift at Morrison General Hospital, housekeeping. She gets off at 7 a.m. I looked at Kyle. Can you handle things here? Go, he said. And Arthur, whatever you decide to do about Lorraine Morrison, count me in. I waited in the hospital parking lot until Diana emerged at 7:15, looking exhausted but somehow more substantial than the woman who'd handed me divorce papers 8 months ago. She saw me sitting on the hood of my car and stopped walking. Hello, Arthur. Hello, Diana. I met your private investigator last night. I figured she'd find you eventually. Diana sat down on a nearby bench. Did she tell you about Lorraine? She did. The question is, what do we do about it? We? You were manipulated, Diana, used as a weapon against me by someone I trusted. That makes you a victim, too. She was quiet for a long moment. I still had the affair, Arthur. I still chose to humiliate you at the retirement party. Lorraine didn't force me to do those things. No, but she created the circumstances that made them possible. She fed Victor information he used to seduce you. She convinced him to push for the public divorce. She orchestrated the whole thing. So, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we give Lorraine Morrison exactly what she gave us, public humiliation and personal consequences. Diana looked up at me. You have a plan. I have the beginning of one, but I'll need your help. Why would you want my help? After everything I did to you? Because you're the only other person who understands what it feels like to be manipulated by someone you trusted. And because... I paused, trying to find the right words. Because despite everything that happened between us, I still remember the woman I fell in love with 33 years ago, the one who believed in justice and hated bullies. Diana smiled, a real smile, not the artificial one she'd worn for years. What do you need me to do? 3 weeks later, Morrison Industries held its annual shareholders meeting. It was a big affair. 200 investors, board members, and company executives gathered in the downtown Marriott ballroom. Harold Morrison always used the occasion to celebrate the company's achievements and outline plans for the future. I hadn't planned to attend. As a retiree, I was no longer required to be there. But Harold had called personally to invite me, saying the company wanted to honor my 4 decades of service with a special presentation. Diana was there too, working as part of the catering staff. She'd gotten the job through a temp agency, and no one seemed to recognize her as my ex-wife. She moved through the crowd serving drinks and appetizers, invisible in her black uniform. Lorraine Morrison held court near the front of the room, resplendent in a designer dress that probably cost more than Diana made in 2 months. She was telling a group of wives about her latest charity project, her voice carrying clearly across the ballroom. It's so important to give back to the community, she was saying, especially to those less fortunate than ourselves. People who've made poor choices and need guidance to get back on track. I caught Diana's eye across the room. She nodded once. The formal presentation began at 8 p.m. Harold took the podium and talked about the company's record profits, successful expansions, and bright future. Then he called me up to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to recognize someone who's been instrumental in Morrison Industries' success for the past 40 years. Arthur Denton served as our chief financial officer with distinction, integrity, and unwavering loyalty. Arthur, would you please join me? I walked to the podium amid polite applause. Harold shook my hand and presented me with a crystal award, a token of appreciation that probably cost the company $50. Thank you, Harold, and thank you all for this honor. I looked out at the crowd, my eyes finding Lorraine in the front row. She was smiling, but there was something cold in her expression. 40 years is a long time. Long enough to see this company grow and prosper. Long enough to build relationships with people I thought I could trust. I paused, letting the silence stretch. I've learned that trust is a fragile thing. It takes years to build and seconds to destroy. Some people understand that. They value trust, protect it, nurture it. Others see trust as a weakness to be exploited. Lorraine's smile was starting to look strained. Recently, I discovered that someone I trusted, someone I considered a friend, had betrayed that trust in the most personal way possible. This person used private information to destroy my marriage, manipulate my family, and attempt to steal my life savings. The room was completely silent now. Harold was looking at me with confusion and growing alarm. The person I'm talking about is sitting in this room tonight. She orchestrated an elaborate scheme involving my ex-wife's affair, fed confidential information to her lover, and tried to destroy my life as revenge for a perceived slight. I pulled out a folder and opened it on the podium. I have emails, phone records, financial transactions, and witness statements that prove every word I'm saying. Lorraine Morrison stood up abruptly. Harold, I don't know what Arthur is talking about, but... Sit down, Lorraine, I said quietly. I'm not finished. The authority in my voice, the same authority I'd used in 40 years of board meetings and financial presentations, made her sink back into her chair. This person thought she was clever. She thought she could destroy me without consequences. She thought wrong. I looked directly at Lorraine. 3 years ago, at the company Christmas party, Lorraine Morrison made unwanted advances toward me in her husband's office. When I rejected her, she threatened revenge. Last year, she made good on that threat. Harold's face had gone white. Arthur, what are you saying? I'm saying your wife orchestrated my divorce, Harold. She fed information to Victor Hale, encouraged my wife's affair, and tried to cost me my retirement savings, all because I wouldn't sleep with her 3 years ago. The room erupted, people talking, shouting, demanding explanations. Lorraine was on her feet, denying everything, calling me a liar and a bitter old man, but I wasn't done. There's more, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. The private investigator I hired discovered that this isn't the first time Lorraine has done something like this. She's been systematically destroying the marriages of men who reject her advances. 3 other Morrison Industries executives have been divorced under suspicious circumstances in the past 5 years. That got everyone's attention. The room fell silent again. I have documentation of all of it. Names, dates, methods, a pattern of manipulation and revenge that goes back years. I closed the folder and looked out at the stunned faces. I'm not asking for sympathy or support. I'm simply telling you the truth. What you do with that information is up to you. I walked off the stage, leaving Harold standing alone at the podium with 200 people staring at his wife. Diana met me at the back of the room. How do you feel? She asked. Like I can finally breathe again. We walked out together, leaving the chaos behind us.